Record? No, business.
Yes, record.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, let's begin. Last week in Parsha Shoftim, we go through the rules of war. It talks about if you go out to war, the Kohen, the general, comes up and says, if anybody got married, they can come back. If anybody planted the vineyard and didn't have a chance to enjoy its fruit, they can go home. If anyone built a house. There were three exceptions. Then it talks about other rules of war. For example, it talks about if you put a siege around the city, you can't surround the city on all four sides, only on three sides. You have to leave space for people to run away. It talks about when you cut down trees to surround the city. You can cut down any tree you want, but not a fruit tree.
Yes.
There are rules. In the middle of all this, the Torah stops and says, if you find a dead person and you don't know who killed him, so the closest city brings a sheep, egla arufa, and they break its back of its neck, and there's a whole procedure. Then our parsha comes, you go out to war, there's a beautiful woman, you want to marry her. So we talk all about the laws of war, we stop, in case you find a dead body, and we go back to the laws of war. So why the break? So there was a chief rabbi here in New York many years ago, R.Rabbi Yosef. He asked this question, and he gave a very interesting answer. He says, when a person is in war, he might have started as a soldier being very mild-mannered, very pleasant, but war changes people. War makes people hard. He says, the Torah is telling you, in the middle of all the rules of war, stop. If you find a dead body, somebody committed murder. It might have been the soldier who saw so much death in war that he no longer cares and he murdered somebody. Okay, got the...
Yeah, I told the security, I said, okay, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Just keep 30 minutes.
So you know, he might commit the murder. So he says, it's telling you, it's teaching you that war changes people. And therefore, if a country is constantly at war, it's possible that the murder rate in the country might go up. Because when you teach soldiers how to use guns and how to kill, when they come home and they get into a fight, they could kill them. So it's a very fascinating answer. And it changes people. Ammon and Moab. It says in this week's Parsha, if they want to become, they can convert, they can become Jewish, but they can't marry a Jewish girl. A man from Ammon and Moab wants to marry a Jewish girl. What's the answer? No. Why not? Two reasons. They hired Bilam, and they didn't greet you with food and water.
Yes.
Okay. What's so bad about they didn't greet you with food and water? So the answer is very simple. Who took care of their great-great-grandfather of Ammon and Moab? Avraham. Who was the great-great-grandfather of Lot? So Avraham takes care of Lot, feeds him, clothes him, houses him, and you have no hakarat hatov. That makes you no longer part of the Jewish people. Now, why can't they can convert. Why can't they marry a Jewish woman? Because a Jewish home is built on a husband recognizing the good that the wife does. If you have a man from Ammon and Moab, and they have no hakarat hatov, what kind of a husband will they make for a Jewish woman? A lousy husband. Therefore the Torah says, you can't marry a Jewish woman. It's a fascinating thing. That means here, they can convert, they can become Jewish, they can marry another convert, they can marry someone else from Ammon and Moab, but they cannot marry a Jewish wife. Because they don't know how to say thank you. And if you don't know how to say thank you, you shouldn't be married. That's a fascinating thing.
Even this law we should keep now in this time?
Well, today we don't know who's from Ammon and Moab anymore. These nations are gone, so it's hard to keep it. But saying thank you, yeah, you should keep that down still. You should still say thank you. There's interesting, you talk about, kavod, honor. Normally we think the older you get, the more honor you get. Really, it's less. I'll give you an example. A kid becomes a bar mitzvah. So they send out a bar mitzvah invitation. Right in the middle of the invitation is his name in big writing. Okay? A few years later, he gets married. So now his name is a little smaller, and he shares it with somebody else. There's two names. Right. Now he grows a little bit more, and he's going to marry off his son. Now his name on the invitation is on the bottom in small print. Gets a little older, he's going to marry off a grandson. Now his name is on the back of the invitation. Now the Ashkenazi, they put the grandparent's name on the back of the invitation.
And don't put.
They don't even put it at all. So here, when you were young, your name was in big letters, and then it gets smaller, disappears. He says, it's so interesting that in life, you would think the older you get, the more respect you get. The truth is, it's just the opposite. I heard a story, very interesting story. Listen to the story. There was a man in Israel, he was in his 90s. He was like a 90-year-old man. And he had black hair, no white hair. One day he's at the Makolet at the grocery store, and the guy behind the counter says, Moshe, I don't believe it. I see a white hair. Mazal tov, you finally have a white, you're 90 years old, you finally have a white hair. The guy got so upset. So upset he went home. He started crying. He said goodbye to his wife and children. He started making funeral arrangements. So his wife said to him, his friend said to him, what are you getting so upset for? You're 90 years old, you have one gray hair. You're panicking, that's it, life is over. So he says, you don't know. Let me tell you the story. He says, when I was a little boy, I had a neighbor, Rabbi Akiva Eger. He's a big tzaddik, a big gaon. And he was up late at night writing Chidushei Torah, writing Torah. And he ran out of ink. And he was so upset that he ran out of ink. So I ran to the house and I bought him a bottle of ink, black ink. And he said to me, because you gave me a bottle of black ink, I give you a bracha, your hair will stay as black as the ink you brought me until the day you die. And he said, I'm 90 years old, I don't have one white hair. Now I have a white hair, you know what that means? I'm dying. It means that the day I'm dying is coming. And then a few days later, he died.
Wow.
It's a strange story. That means Rabbi Akiva Eger gave him a bracha that, that he would have, his hair would be as black as the ink you brought me. And his whole life, his hair was pitch black, no gray. Unbelievable. And then when he saw that white hair, he panicked. Okay. There's a famous Gemara, very difficult Gemara. Gemara is in Sanhedrin, Daf Kuf Zayin. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav. David HaMelech wanted to worship idols. David HaMelech to worship idols? So who went to him? Hushai HaArki, a good friend of his, went to him and said to him, why would you want to worship idols? Imagine, they're going to say, a king like you, who wrote Tehillim, who loved Hashem so much, should worship idols? Doesn't make any sense. So he said, David Melech says, and is it better that people should say a king like me should have a son that rebelled and tried to kill him? What are people going to say? How could I raise a son like that? Maybe if I worship idols, people will say I got what I deserved. So Hushai Arki says, well, didn't you study Torah? Right after you take a Yafas Torah, a woman from war, it says you can have a son who's rebellious. Yeah. Why did you marry this woman? It was a woman he married in the wartime. Shouldn't have married her. He says, but the Torah allows it. He says, yeah, the Torah allows it, but the Torah says that if you marry for all the wrong reasons, you're going to have children that are not going to be great. So no one's going to blame you. So they learn from this Gemara that there are many things that the Torah says that goes just to help you fight your Yetzer Hara. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you. Not everything in life is good for you. Somebody might say to you, but it's mutter, it's permitted. That's true. But it doesn't mean it's good for you. Not everything is good for you. Okay, let's go a little bit further. We have in this week's Parsha the whole section of Shuluach HaKan. What is Shuluach HaKan? You're walking down the street and you see a bird's nest. Now it's got to be a wild bird, like a pigeon. It can't be a chicken or a turkey. Or it could be a dove, a sparrow. And you see the mother on the nest and the little eggs in the nest or little birds in the nest. So there's a mitzvah to send away the mother bird. If you send away the mother bird and you take the eggs, you're given a bracha of long life. And there are other brachos as well, as we're going to see in a moment. If you send away the mother bird, arichat yamin. No different than if you honor your parents, arichat yamin. So it's a very complicated mitzvah. We're going to talk about it tonight. What's the mitzvah? That means, why is there a mitzvah to send away the mother bird? So
morning time or night time?
So they say that in the morning time, very often the bird sitting on the eggs is the father, not the mother. So it's supposed to be done towards evening because that's when the mother comes back. Okay? But if you know it's the mother, you can do it anytime. Now, what's the reason we do it? Logic says, if you're going to take the eggs, why should the mother see you take the eggs? When you send away the mother, you're showing rachamim to the mother.
Yeah, to the animals.
To the animals. You're showing rachamim to the animals. That's what the Rambam says. You're showing compassion. You're teaching people to be compassionate. The truth is, if I wanted to teach you to be compassionate, I would tell you to have rachamim. But if I wanted you to have compassion, the truth is, I would tell you, leave the eggs and the mother alone. That means, you can't tell me, oh, I took the cow away and I took the baby and I slaughtered it. I have rachamim. You don't have rachamim, you just killed an animal. You know, Pita would not be happy with you. So, the Rambam, he is of the opinion that it teaches rachamim. So, that's not, that Hashem should have rachamim on his creatures. The Ramban, it teaches people rachamim. The Zohar has a different approach, very unusual Zohar. The Zohar says that when you send away the mother bird and you take the eggs, the mother bird cries to Hashem, look what's happening. They're taking my children. Hashem feels bad for the mother bird. And then the angels say to Hashem, why do you feel bad only for the mother bird? Look at your children, the Jewish people. They're in Galut. People are taking their children all the time, pogroms and Holocaust and everything else. Why don't you feel bad for the Jewish people? So the Zohar says that Hashem feels bad for the bird, and the angels whisper in his ear to feel bad for the Jewish people. So when you do that, you get rachamim from Hashem because he forgot about us and now he'll remember us. That's what the Zohar says. That's a fascinating answer. That's a fascinating answer. So then they ask the question, Rabbi Neustadt has a whole thing over here. What happens if you don't want the eggs? It says you're supposed to send away the mother bird, you're supposed to pick up the eggs to show that they're yours.
And
then put them back if you don't want them. The rule is you should take the eggs and use them. I don't know what you're going to do with those eggs. Maybe you can put it in your chold. I'm not sure what you're going to do. According to some opinions, if you don't want the eggs, leave the bird alone. But most people say, even if you don't want the eggs, send away the mother, carefully pick up the nest, show that they're yours, and then put it down and walk away.
And that's it, this mitzvah going to be...
And the mitzvah will be yours.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So most poskim reject the approach that leave it alone. They say, do it, send away the mother bird anyway. Do you recite a bracha on this mitzvah? Most people say no. Now, should you go out and try to do this mitzvah? That means they have a group in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, I think in their sophomore Hasidim, you can call them up. The shuls have their phone number, and they advertise. You want to do the mitzvah shluch hakam? Give us a call. They charge you like $800, $1,000.
Wow.
And they have nests all around the Navy Yard, and you can go and you can send away the mother bird and you can pick up the eggs. There's a whole
This
thing.
800?
They charge you about $800 to $1,000. Now,
They're making money.
they're making money.
Wow.
Everybody's making money. The question is,
It's nice idea.
is Shaluch HaKhan the type of a mitzvah that you do if you happen to come across it? That means tzitzit. You don't have to wear tzitzit. But we buy tzitzit because it's not expensive and we wear it. Tefillin. We put on tefillin. There are people who skip a day. They don't get the mitzvah, but it's not an avera. Is Shluch HaKhan the type of a mitzvah that everybody should try to do at least once in their life? Even if it costs $800. Or do you say, no, if Hashem wants me to do the mitzvah, I'll walk on the street and I'll see the nest. And if I don't, I don't. It doesn't have to be in the street. Maybe when you go up to camp, you'll see it. Maybe when you take a trip, you'll see it. Sometimes you get a nest in your window, in your air conditioner thing.
In my balcony.
On your balcony. So then you get it, So do you have to do the mitzvah? So, the preferred time to do the mitzvah when the eggs are 1 or 2 days old. If they're older than that, they have blood spots, so you can't really do the mitzvah because you can't take the eggs anyway. Is it a mitzvah that you should do? And many of the Meforshim say that given the opportunity, you should definitely try to do the mitzvah. Because one who performs the mitzvah not only gets long life, but they may have the schus that they can build a house, mitzvah godaris mitzvah, they have the schus that they'll get a good shidduch. There are many rewards for doing the mitzvah. So there seems to be that besides long life, there are additional benefits, and therefore one should try to do the mitzvah. So even if the mitzvah costs money, you should try to do the mitzvah. So that's just, I put that out there, that's something that you should think about as life goes on. They talk about, there's 2 mitzvahs. Shluch HaKhan is a simple mitzvah. Honoring your parents is a very hard mitzvah. And they both have the same reward. So what do you see from here? We never know the rewards of mitzvahs. Hard mitzvahs, easy mitzvahs have the same reward. And honoring one's parents is Hakarat HaTov, it's Rachamim, and Shluch HaKhan is Rachamim. So we see that there's the 2 together. Okay. In the end of Parshas Kiseitze, we have the pasuk, remember what Amalek did to you. Okay? The end of Parshas Kiseitze, not the Haftarah, the Maftir. Right. You only read one Haftarah, we read both. We made up for the one we skipped 2 weeks ago.
Yeah?
You didn't do that. Okay? Why? Because it's Svardim. Zochar Asher Asa Lecha Amalek. Now, when do we read this in the year besides now? The Shabbos before Purim. This is Shabbat Zachar, right? And it's very important that people come to shul and they listen to this very carefully. It's a positive mitzvah. Remember what Amalek did. Now, we Ashkenazim in davening have 6 things that there's a mitzvah to remember. Svardim in the back of their siddur don't have 6. They have 10. There are 10 things to remember. What are the things we remember? We remember Yetziat Mitzrayim. We remember the man. We remember what happened to Miriam. We remember Har Sinai.
Miriam Lashon
Hara, Har Sinai. We remember Kriyat Yamsuf. And we remember what Amalek did. 6 things. Sfaradim have 4 more things that they add on to that. How often do you have to remember?
Every day.
Like if we say Zochar Yom HaShabbos, remember the Shabbos. We do that once a week. How often do you have to remember what Amalek did?
Every day.
Once a year. Once a year.
Read it every day.
We read the Sheish Chirot every day, but the mitzvah of going to shul and reading the Parsha is once a year. The Shabbos before Purim. Why once a year?
Why?
So the Gemara says that the human mind, their memory is good for a year. After a year,
Forget.
you forget. They bring proof of that is that when a person experiences a loss, like a death, the avelut for parents is 1 year.
1 year.
After 1 year, things get easier, we forget. If you see a good friend that you haven't seen for a full year, you know what bracha you make? Baruch mechayei hametim.
behind.
Because I haven't seen you for a full year, it was as if you had died. Okay? 30 days we make shechiyana, but after a year. So it says that a person forgets after a year. They bring that down from a lost object. The Gemara says that if you find something and you announce it and no one claims it for 1 year, the assumption is the person gave up hope you can keep it. Why? Because after 1 year he forgot about that he lost it. So 1 year is the extent of a person's memory. This year we have a problem.
Why?
Why? Because this year is a leap year.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this year,
Circles.
it's not going to be 12 months.
13.
It's going to be between last Purim to this Purim, 13. So the Chassam Sofer says, that's why this Shabbos, when we read it, everybody should go to shul, like it's Shabbat Zachar, and they should listen, so they don't have 12 months without remembering. The R.Rabbi says, that's very nice, except I don't believe it. You know why? The Rambam doesn't talk about it, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't talk about it. He says if that's true, Halacha would have said it. The Rambam would have written, on a leap year, come to Shul, Parshat Kisei. The Rambam doesn't write that. So since the Rambam doesn't write it, and the Shulchan Aruch doesn't write it, must be, even when there's 13 months, no problem. You remember 12 months, this year you'll remember 13 months. So, he says he doesn't buy into that. Now, why is it a year? I'll give you a very interesting answer. Let's say you take a wife, her husband dies, right? Even though the avelut is 30 days, the pain is for a year. Why? Because every single Chag, she remembers what she did with her husband the year before. Last year, Pesach, we were here. Last year, Shavuos, we were here. I remember on Tisha B'Av this. I remember Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Hanukkah, Purim. That means when you go through a calendar year, there are so many different events. You remember, I was with my father, I was with my mother. You feel the loss for the calendar year. By the second or third year, you don't remember anymore. Right? I mean, when my mother passed away, I remember that she was with me for Pesach. I remember what happened on Purim. I remember, but now, 10 years later, I really don't remember where she was on Pesach and Purim. Right? So the memory is for a year. Then you forget. Because you relive the year every single year. So that's why you feel it that way. But the R.Rabbi goes a step further. He says, very fascinating, he says the rabbis control time. Bless you. The rabbis control time. I'll give you an example. A kid is bar mitzvah in Adar. All of a sudden, when he turns 13, that year there's 2 Adars. When does it become bar mitzvah? The first Adar or the second Adar? The second Adar.
Second.
So all of a sudden, he's not mature. He would have been 13 at March 1st. Now the rabbis are saying, no, you're not 13 till April 1st. We added a month. But maturity is physical. Because they added a month, it's going to affect physical? Yeah. That's the power of Chazal. So Chazal say, this year's a leap year, therefore you're going to remember for 13 months, your memory will be good for 13 months. That's what the R.Rabbi says. I'll give you another example. Listen to this, it's complicated, I want you to be able to follow it. This will end with, it's already 9:26. There's a halacha. A woman whose husband disappears, can she get remarried? No. Husband disappeared. But the rabbis are really worried about that, and they try to find every single loophole. For example, there was a submarine in the Six-Day War that sank off the coast of Israel. And nobody, all the sailors on there, they were married. Rabbi Vaji Yosef said after a certain time, all the wives could remarry. Even though they didn't have dead
For
bodies.
how long? Like 5 years, 6 years?
He waited a certain amount of time, correct. And it was a big chidush because the Ashkenazim didn't really buy into it. It was a very big chidush. I'll give you an example. If you have a boat on the ocean and the boat sinks, the people on the boat, the men on the boat, can their wives remarry? The halacha says no. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch that says, Mayim she'ein lehem sov, water that has no end. You sink in the middle of an ocean. There's no shore.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they survived. You cannot get married. They bring down a story that Rabbi Gamliel was with Rabbi Akiva on a boat. The boat sank. Rabbi Gamliel thought Rabbi Akiva had died. When he comes to land, all of a sudden he's walking down the street, he sees Rabbi Akiva. He's so happy, he says, now I understand the wisdom of the Chazal. They said, water like this, if you get lost in the water, you could survive. That's why you're alive. Had the rabbi said, oh, you fell in the ocean, for sure he's dead, you would be dead today. Why? Because if the rabbis say, if you fall in the ocean, you're going to die, guess what? You're going to die. But the fact that the rabbi said you could survive, that's why you survived.
Blessing is blessing, curse is curse.
Yeah, it's like they control the nature.
Wow.
So Rabbi Gamliel was saying the rabbis were not trying to be hard on women and not allow them to remarry. They just didn't want men, because in those days everybody traveled the oceans. They didn't want people on the oceans, if they fall into the ocean, to be called dead, because then they would die. Hashem would make them die. So he says it's an amazing thing. The fact that they allow you, they say you're alive, you can live.
But that's hope.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What means survive?
Live. They bring down, for example, Rabbi Gershom. Rabbeinu Gershom made many gezerot. One of them was, I can't read other people's mail. And they called him Ma'or HaGola, the light of the exile. Tosos quotes him, everybody quotes him. What did he do? He made 2 gezerot. He says, according to the Torah, a man can have more than one wife. I say no. According to the Torah, a man can divorce his wife against her will. I say no, you need her permission. When he made those 2 gezerot, people said to him, wow, you're a light into the exile. Why? Because the Jews were saying, we're in Galut for so many years. Maybe Hashem is going to divorce us, get rid of us. Maybe Hashem is going to take another nation besides us. But once Rabbeinu Gershom says, nah, you can't divorce without permission, and he can't marry a second wife, guess what? Hashem can't divorce us, and Hashem cannot replace us. Why? Because of the Chachamim making Gzeira here, it changes the nature in Shemayim.
Gzera is prohibit.
What?
Prohibition. Gzera
Is a declaration. Is a
Law.
what?
A law.
A law. So he says that they called Rabban Gershon the light of the exile, because now the Jewish people could calm down. They felt Hashem rejected them. Rabban Gershon says, sorry, I made a law. You cannot send anybody away against their will, and we don't agree, and you can't marry a second wife, we don't agree, so now Hashem can't get rid of us. The minute he said that, it was binding in Shemayim. They called him the light of the exile. That's the power of Chazal.
What means gzera?
Wow.
What's
Law.
a law?
Закон.
Okay? Have a good night,
Eu acho
everybody.
legal,
It's already
eu acho legal, eu acho da hora, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.